first off, I am really Scottish. I've just suddenly realised this. I heard myself on the radio the other day there, and I thought, oh my God, you know. So, see if I speak too fast, can you put your hand up? Because when I do get excited, I speak a bit fast. And I was at the back of the room there thinking about all the Scottish colloquialisms I could use so that you couldn't translate it into Welsh. So I've decided I need to get out more. So listen, I'm here to talk to you about violence, and it's my own experience, and I'm just going to show you about some of the things that we did. First off, don't think that I've always been a success when I show you this. I have a whole lecture that I do on failure. And if you cut most Scots in half, we've sort of got Calvinism. You know that, right? You know that we're doomed, you know? And I always say this, if I'm speaking to Scots, I always say that, you know whether you're a Calvinist, because there's a test. And it says, you'd rather go north than go south. You'd rather go to North US than Milan. Your favourite sweeties are Fisherman's Friends, extra strong. And it sort of dogs us a wee bit in Scotland. You know that? Oh, we're doomed. You'll never fix it. You know, you should just no bother. You know, so I'm going to try and overcome this a bit, and I'm to tell you a wee bit of success, because it can change. And I know that when Rianne spoke to me, she said, we're talking about leadership and whole systems. So I'll maybe try and talk to you a wee bit about this. So, this is pretty much what I deal with, and it's ambiguity. When I started off, I didn't know how to deal with violence, and that's why I failed spectacularly at things. And I'm not going to talk about figures, because I'm in the police, and I know, and I was in the Metropolitan Police as well, that if you torture figures, they will confess. Absolutely, you can just. So I'm going to try not to do it very much. But I'll give you some context. We are now a 40-year low for violence. When I started, I had 147 murders a year, and we are now down to less than 50. We're not there yet, we're not done yet, and we're at a 40-year low for violence. Our school exclusions are down, our teachers have done a spectacular job of getting our exclusions down. Violence against women is still toxic, and we need to change that. But we've got innovation and practices increasing. So, that's a bit of the context before I start. And see, before I start, come to Scotland, it's lovely. I mean, it really is. So this is where I started. I went up to Strathclyde in 2002, and when I got there, I was just overwhelmed. I'd been away for 18 years. I worked in Northern Ireland and East Africa. I'd worked all over the world. And I came back, and I was just overwhelmed by the amount of violence. You know that? It wasn't called Chief Inspector Taggart, there's been a murder. There's been another murder, and another murder, and another murder. And I was in charge of intelligence. I was head of intelligence analysis, so I was putting out all the intelligence cells, which is all the secret side of the business, to look at investigation. And we were just, it was just dreadful. And I took 3 weeks holiday off, and I went away and I wrote a report for the Chief Constable. And what I said to the Chief was, and he was delighted, you can just imagine what I'm going to tell you this, he said, despite the best 30 years of policing, Chief Constable, our prisons were full, you have made a difference to prevent violence. Now, normally he would send you to the traffic department, because that's where he sends all the, I'm not going to say it because you're filming this, I'll get hunted. And it was really interesting because at the same time, this came out. And what it was United Nations Peace Monitor, and what it said was that Scotland was the most violent country in Europe and Glasgow was the most violent city. Now you can imagine, Visit Scotland were bloody delighted. Come to Scotland, get chipped. You know, and it was really, I never get invited to any civic functions. You know, never. It's like, oh, there's the violence woman. It also explains why I didn't get married to about a year and a half ago, because can I tell you, on your dating profile, head of violence, just doesn't, you know, it doesn't matter. My husband says, oh, your foreplay's patter, because all you talk about is murder. You know, so anyway, so it came out. Now, I quite like to put Columbia up here, because it makes us look good. You know, although I did get invited there, I said, there is nothing I can do for you. So, now, you can do 2 things when you're confronted with stats. You can either say, oh, these countries don't record it right. Because that's what we do, isn't it? We sort of make ourselves think, oh, that's not really right. Or, you can take the brave approach. Embrace the zeitgeist. We are Scotland and we have a problem. And we absolutely did. And it was a zeitgeist because I had a whole range of professionals like yourselves and A&E consultants who were saying to me, this is an absolute nightmare. You know, you were going into the A&E departments and it was just gang member after gang member, and it was a real challenge. So we decided we'd do something different. But it is a wicked problem. It is complex and it's complicated, and I'm not going to get to the stage that I say it's fixed. If I'd have been really clever 11 years ago, I'd have looked at burglary. I could have given everybody really strong doors, great locks, said keep your lights on, and ridden off into the sunset and said that's it, fixed. But I'm not. I can make it better and not worse. I'm the violence reduction unit, not the violence eradication unit, because I'm not daft. There's a whole range of things that I find it really difficult to try and tackle, but I still try. But the complexity overwhelms us. I talk about complexity quite a bit because, particularly for your area, and I was just listening to the chief executive, sometimes when we consider the complexity of the society we live in and the challenges we face, it just seems, our organisations just seem feeble, don't we? I cannot be the only one who's confused by Greece at the moment. How can you borrow money from the European Central Bank to pay the IMF? It's a bit like paying, using your credit card to pay off your overdraft. And I'm confused by it all. And then you get addiction, violence, child abuse, terrorism, and it is overwhelming. Can I tell you, I'm about to approach a significant birthday. Don't guess right, please don't guess right. And I was just thinking, see when I was 10 years old and I was watching all these sci-fi programmes a number of years ago, no clues. See when I was thinking about what the future looked like, I thought about space rails and hoverboards. Honestly, I did. I thought that's what the future would look like. I didn't think the future would look like child sexual abuse, food banks, poverty. I was in somebody's house the other day and I was almost in tears because I couldn't believe the abject poverty they were living in and how they were bringing up their kids. That's not the 21st century Scotland that I really wanted to be in, and I know that a whole range of people are affected by this. And it's really difficult because sometimes when we're faced by that, our response has always been to reorganise to tackle the challenge, doesn't it? We reorganise. Then we retrain the professionals to deal with another manifestation of hopelessness, only to have it change, proliferate, and form resistance. So when I said I really wanted to change violence, I went to see somebody really senior in the prison service. Please don't tweet this. And he said to me, and I said, I want to do the violence reduction. And he said to me, it's too big, don't bother. He gave me a cup of tea and a biscuit, and I never went back to see him ever. Because, and I always say this, you can only do one of three things. You can lead, you can follow, or you can get out the way. Don't start. If you want to do it, then, absolutely. And there's a great Harvard paper called In Praise of Followers, which is about people who don't particularly want to be in a leadership position, but follow. And that's the difficulty. So, I want you to close your eyes now, and I want you to imagine that Wales, or England or Wales, is at the lowest level of violence. That you live in a country where women aren't abused in their own home. That kids grow up to lead great lives and aren't at the mercy, they're not born to fail. I can tell you that's something I would aspire to. Because I also dreamt that when I was really young, that in 2015 we'd have equality. But maybe that's just a bit too aspirational, maybe I need another 15 years hence. But you never know, we might get there. So, this is what's happening at the moment. You would think, so crime is going down, we're at a 40-year low, so this is what you'd expect, wouldn't it? Demand would go down, and our prisons would get lower. So it's really interesting. Crime is going down, absolutely. Our demand is going up, and our prison population has remained exactly the same. And the challenge is, we've got all these other things: fear, welfare, poverty, public sector reduction, mental health in the ageing population, and it's putting huge pressures on policing. And even Sir Peter Fahey, who is my secret squeeze, don't tell my husband this, but he's got the most stern face ever, I mean, he actually came out in The Guardian last year and talked about he wanted to see people's medical records because they were turning up, and he was faced with a complexity and he wanted to know what he was dealing with. Now, it's never going to happen, but I absolutely understand why he was trying to do it. The complexity overwhelms us and we need to change. And when you're talking about policing, I always say this to the public. You'll get the Daily Mail, hang them all by the neck until dead. If you give people a choice between tough or soft, they'll always choose tough. Tough or smart, they'll choose smart every time. And we need to be smart about our services, about changing. So what do? So, traditionally, violence is a criminal justice problem. So you report a crime, I then record it, then we then investigate it, depending on what police force you're in. Obviously, with the Welsh police, it would be detected, and somebody would go to jail. Now, we've been doing that for hundreds of years. It's worked quite well. Jails are full. So we decided we'd change it, because I needed a different frame, because people were just saying, get out your bunker, Chief Constable, tell me what you're doing about violence. And can I tell you, we had control of just a wee tiny bit of it, because it was everybody's problem. So we started to deal with it as a public health issue. Scotland is the only country so far to deal with violence as a stated public health issue, just like a disease, just like measles. So if public health were trying to think about measles and say, I know, I'll try that criminal justice issue. We will wait until you get the spots, we'll put you in a hospital until the spots go away and you die, and then we'll let you out again. They don't do that. They do something very different. And that's what we did to try and engage everybody. And we tried to look at it like a contagious process. Now, I want you to think about violence like a disease because I want to show you something. And I want you to think about how people get infected and how they pass it on. There are 2 causes to violence. First off, propensity to be violent, the personal factors. You guys will know all those. And then the social factors. If you're brought up in a violent, angry home, and then you go to a pub where there's loads of loud music, vertical drinking, you're a bit drunk, that's a recipe for disaster. So, this is public health. For those of you who don't know public health, I'm just about to murder it completely. This is the 4 elements. First, surveillance. Know what you're dealing with. What's the scale of your problem? Then, risk and protective factors. What makes you more susceptible to it? And what can protect you against it? Because remember, we're looking at this like a disease. Develop and evaluate intervention. Find out what works. We have thousands of pilots that never fail. We have more pilots than British Airways. Honest to God, it's unbelievable. And then actually what public health say is when you find something that works, you scale it up so that everybody gets the protection. So surveillance, this is our violence figures, so I put them all on a graph, and then what I did was I went into our A&E department, so I work a lot with emergency medicine, I said, can you count how many people are coming in as a result of violence? And that was the action amount. So when the Chief Constable was standing and saying violence is up 2%, down 5%, up 10%, there were people out in communities like one or two things. You're either A, a liar, or B, you're a complete idiot because you don't know what's happening out here. And either of those is a bad thing. So we started to do injury surveillance, so we put free phones in all the hospitals to try and get people to report, and they don't report for a whole range of reasons. Many of them because they're already involved in violence themselves. So there's a complexity about it. So I want to show you this now. Could you run it, please? Now this has got some violence. I'm the only sound here. Right, so this is Glasgow city centre. This is loads of young men issued with testosterone really and hormones and don't quite know what to do with them yet. They haven't met women. Fighting with belts. And you see them, they have the uniform of poverty. They look like loads of your young guys. And you see that one of them goes down here, wait to see, and he gets an absolute kicking. Right, this is David. David's just about to come running down the yellow lines here. You see him? He's got a knife in his hand, he stabs a passer-by on the way by. This is Paul. Paul just gets out of a taxi to come and meet his girlfriend. And he stabs him, wait to see. Now wait to see what he does when he sees the blood in his knife. Look, he looks at it, and he goes, yes. You bring a kid up in a war zone, you create a warrior. David's got a whole range of skills that you and I don't have. He's running up the street. CCTV does not stop violence. It does make the detectives look good, which I'm grateful for. Can you see everybody else out for the night? Tell me why nobody's doing anything. Has it just become so normalised? Changing social norms. And that's where we were. He picks up his baseball cap, he's got another baseball cap there, a black one, picks up the knife, you'll see him, he starts to hear the sirens. And he starts to run. He's a really fast sprinter, actually. We should be using him. Right, he goes over the road and you'll see him and he gets picked up by the police because it's dead easy, we catch the feckless and the stupid. By the time we got him across the road, Paul, the second guy, died at the scene. One stab into the heart, and he bled out within minutes. Can you think, because there's a horrible bit after this? Right, that's fine. Could you just go to the next one? So I decided I would have a look at David, because people are so overwhelmed by complexity. I wanted to show them that you could do something. So I started to look at him. As I said, I was head of intelligence. I started to look at David, and you guys in social work will do this frequently, but I probably had more access. So I want you to think about this as an infection. His mum once got alcohol problems before he's even born. Born 81, lives in Easterhouse, 19th most deprived ward in Scotland. Average life expectancy in Scotland for a man in Easterhouse is 55. In Baghdad it's 63. He's got domestic violence in the house and rehomed. You think about the infection. Goes to nursery, Barlannock Primary School, rehomed again to Royston, continuing domestic violence, different partner. Family moved to Easter House. Moves in with his maternal grandmother during the week, and his grannies are lovely, are they not? In the house, 4 adult males with 160 convictions between them. And this is where we put an 8-year-old boy because his mum couldn't cope. Now, I know there must be optimists in the room. I couldn't find one of the brothers, William. I have changed some of the names. Tell me, do you escape from a family like that? How many of you think he's living a great life and a job, or how many of you think he's supporting the M8 and pasting concrete? Really difficult. And that's where we put this on. And this is his exact house. That was a Commonwealth Games site. Here's the thing, I drive up and down that street quite fast sometimes. And the houses look nice. Physical regeneration. We've made the places look nice. But social regeneration behind the front door, I'm not sure we're there yet. But it looks nice. So, family rehoused again due to domestic violence, and then, because we're not sharing information, he is rehoused again and again and again. He then goes to St Leonard's Secondary School, and I phoned up the head teacher and I said, do you remember him? He said, oh yes. He said, he was the most diminutive boy in the year. And you can see that on the film, can't you? He's really small. When I spoke to Sir Harry Burns, who's the Chief Medical Officer, he said he probably had fetal alcohol syndrome that was undiagnosed. He's out with a gang rivalry. We've got loads of gang territories, some of them there from the 1920s, some of them don't even exist anymore. The parents keep it going. You know that, don't go there, the high end or the low end, don't go there, that's a mountie. And they're almost instituting fear into their kids and their young people. Moves to Easter House, moves up the other side, so he's quite resilient. Commits 2 breaches of the peace, refers to a reporter, social work become involved. You guys look a wee bit older. A 22-year-old social worker was assessed to this case. Now, that family, you would need every single skill, wouldn't you, to get through that front door. Honestly, you would need to be long in the tooth. You know, you would need to have real expertise, and she never ever met him. You know that? He's not there, he's everywhere. She never met him. He leaves school, he goes to assisted learning, he's done the housebreaking, excluded intermittently solvent abusers, assault, shoplifting, theft, breach of the peace, regularly drinks alcohol, RTA, family event, he's done the murder at the age of 15 and a half. Can I just point out one thing? See, when he's a real pain in the arse, a kid of the ASBO generation, we are all over him like a rash. See, when he really needed our help, we were nowhere to be found. And I really tried. Now, I'm going to ask you a question later on. When he was sentenced, the judge said in his post-trial report, there did not seem to be anything in the background to suggest that Baird was anything other than a pretty ordinary teenager, although one familiar with general and indeed quite organised levels of gang crime. He seems to come from a decent, supportive family and to show genuine abhorrence for what he did. To show abhorrence, you need empathy, and you get empathy early years. Goes to jail. Mum dies of heroin overdose, sister put in secure accommodation, participates in Scottish leave, he's done by a drug, released on life licence. When he was released, Scottish ministers wrote, Mr. Baird can look forward to wide support from his family in Glasgow and his employment prospects look good. Do you remember the house? Next door to him, Christopher L. He attacks a male with a baseball bat in 2006. Mr. and Mrs. N, she's a knife carrier, he's a heroin dealer. Sylph dealer, David's girlfriend, upstairs an organised crime group. A Valium dealer, a cannabis nexus dealer, a heroin dealer. And you begin to see what the job opportunities are. It's really interesting, when I showed Housing this, Housing said, do you know, we wondered why we couldn't get anybody to stay there. I said, no shit, Sherlock, have you seen it? You know? And the thing is, do you know something, that's my fault, because I knew that. How on earth can we expect Housing to create environments and, you know, that are, I don't know whether you think the tipping point. I'm actually quite asset-based. I should have an asset mark there because there'll be great parents there whose kids have grown up to be social workers and police officers and everything else. There are good people in every community. He's got a cousin at the same address because it's an infection. He gets arrested at the Bloody Sunday commemoration parade because we also have sectarianism because the Nude will obviously be enough. He starts working for the organised criminal group. He attacks a neighbour with a machete. He's dealing heroin and cocaine. His mum's sister Rose dies of a heroin overdose and he inherits her drug debt. No knife carrier. 2007 he had a new baby son. And he lives here. Right, it's Wales. It's where you work. Put your hand up if you think David's son is going to have any better outcome than his dad. God. Where's the? Can I take you're absolutely right. And that is pretty shameful, is it not? Because seeing that intervening time between 1981 and now, we have spent billions and billions of pounds. We have put in safeguarding. We have invested in loads of training for lots of professionals. And here's the truth, I wouldn't normally show this, but your professional group, these are my gang charts. This is just the East End. I stopped counting at 3,500. That's why it's overwhelming, isn't it? Because it's easy to think about David and you think, oh God, and everybody says to me, tell me these boys all right. Right, 3,500. Now their outcome will not always be violence. It'll be drug addiction, it'll be alcoholism, it'll be suicide, it'll be a whole range of other things. But their backgrounds are exactly the same. Absolutely exactly the same. So, what do? So the World Health Organization say if you want to stop a disease, you first stop interrupting transmission. Then you change behaviour. I really should change that because it should have a U in it. It's an American spell. And then you change the norms. You know the norms that say it's too big, you can't bother. Don't fix it. Well, it absolutely is big and it's worth fixing it. Absolutely. So, there's another reason that we have to do it, because what we found is that actually violence makes you physically ill. Has anybody ever seen Harry Burns, Chief Medical Officer? Have you ever been down to Wales? I think you might have been. A few of you might have seen him. We started to look at why the Scots were dying young. Now, it's not just because we want to, although we do, because we have horizontal vein. You guys are actually quite tanned and healthy. Can I come down here? When we started to look at why the Scots died differently from everybody else, the reason we die, drugs-related poisoning, alcohol, suicide, violence. And we've got some increase in small amounts of cancers, but we die because of preventable things. I'm a vegetarian, I really shouldn't show you this, and I always feel a bit guilty. But Harry Burns started to talk about a whole range of other things about why violence might make you physically unwell. And he uses this example, which is 3 sets of monkeys and babies. And what they did was they split them into 3 groups. First set of monkeys could go in with their babies and get food at any time in the holes. Second group of monkeys got food every second day. Third set of monkeys had food one day, food the next day, maybe not for the next day, and then food for the next day, and then it was inconsistent. And then they looked at the babies and the monkeys after they finished. Who do you think became the illest? 1, 2, 3? 3. Inconsistent parents. That is a depressed monkey. And what they've now started to look at is the effect of cortisol, the stress hormone. Inconsistency. You're brought up in a domestically violent household. You're not sure where your dad's going to come in, he's going to beat you up, going to be food in the house, going to be milk in the fridge in the morning, whether you're going to go to school, whether you've got shoes, whether you're going to get bullied. It's a really tough life. When I was speaking to Harry Burns, I said to him, please tell me they took the monkey and gave it Prozac and made it all better. He said, I don't think that was its outcome. But it also affects our weight. And what they think is happening now is that cortisol is being released from our adrenal glands, but if you have it over a long period of time, it causes an inflammatory process called C-reactive protein, and it's laying down fat in our arteries. So violence is making us physically unwell, and it's why we are dying young. So it absolutely is a health issue. And what he says is, for the creation of health, to have well-being, the thing that all you guys have, is you need your life to be predictable, understandable, and manageable. So you get up in the morning, you've got clothes there, you've got your car outside, you've got food in the fridge, you know what you're doing, you're going to work. For loads of the people that we're dealing with, they don't have that, isn't it? Their lives are predictable. They're definitely not understandable. Some of our guys live and die in a square mile. They're scared to go out because they're going to get chipped. And it's a really interesting thing. This actually came from some work on the Holocaust. Those that survived and thrived, that's what they managed to maintain, was a predictable, understandable, manageable life. And I got called down to David Cameron's office post the riots. I'd written a report for the Metropolitan Police that was bloody lovely. I had spent a long time in it. And I think the phrase was, what do you know about violence? What do the Scots know about violence? Because pretty much London's obviously invented it. And I wrote this report, and it obviously went in the Mayor's office, and nobody did anything with it. And I went back up to Scotland. I just thought nobody wants to do anything, because the rubber has to hit the road. You can't just write a strategy, that's nothing. You actually need to do something with it. And then the riots happened, and I got a call, you'll be down in London. And this is what I talked to him. He asked about the riots, and I showed him David's story, which is why lots of the work came off it. And I talked to him about Jimmy Reid. Jimmy Reid was a communist and a Labour Party member, and he was a rector of Glasgow University. He did the rectorial address, and it was reproduced word for word in the Wall Street Journal. And they called it the finest piece of rhetoric since the Gettysburg Address. And what he talked about was alienation. The people at the mercy of blind economic forces that they couldn't control. They had no say in society, no part of society. Your video at the beginning, people just wanted to have a say in what was happening to them. I work in a wee area. We've been trying to do some asset-based work. And somebody said to me, they phoned me up the other day, they said, council have painted our houses. I said, oh, great. Does it look great? She says, they've painted it grey. Right, Scotland, it rains a lot. Grey is a colour that we have in spades. We don't need to paint our houses. Why would you not say to somebody, what colour would you like? Here's a palette of 4 colours. Do you know that? Why would you paint everybody's house grey and just think they're going to like it, instead of giving them an actual choice in life? And if you ever get a chance, if you're talking about leadership, read Jimmy Reid's speech in its absolute fullness. It's the best example of leadership and about really understanding some of the real wicked problems that we have today. And he talked about this, he talked about, and you have it in Wales as well, don't you? You had workers in the 1950s. We all had a purpose in life, didn't we all? You grew up, you left school, you went to the shipyards. And we don't have that anymore. So people are creating their own meaning and purpose. And it's pretty toxic in lots of places. And our suicide is absolutely going through the roof. I talk about violence as also, we use it as self-directed violence. It's under the World Health Organization. And when we look at rates of unemployment and suicide, men in particular, our suicide is going through the roof. And when I asked about why women don't commit suicide as much, Viktor Frankl summed it up. He said, when you have a reason to live, you can put up with almost anything. And most of the women have kids, so they don't commit suicide. So what do? So I decided, that in the kingdom of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. Nobody else was really had a good idea, and I realised that politicians could do the bland stuff. So I wrote a 10-year plan. I actually wrote it at my kitchen table, and I just wrote all the things I would really like to happen. And it was great. It was almost like sometimes I think I'm having a hallucination. It's not really a strategy, but I can still close my eyes and think, I know what Scotland looks like. My chief constable said to me, Karyn, do you have a map? And I said, no, but I have a compass point. I know where I'm going. And so I wrote a 10-year plan, and can I tell you, it needs to be 10 years. It actually needs to be 15 years, because it needs to go beyond the political imperative. Can it be 4 years? It can't be short-term. I was contacted one, but I actually went down to, I shan't tell you, but it was a very senior politician. He said to me, Karyn, what is it you want of politicians? I said, I don't want a politician, I want a statesman. I want somebody who thinks about what the country's going to be like in 10, 15 years. I want a Nye Bevan. He was absolutely devastated. I felt like I was like, oh, And then I realised why I don't get invited back anywhere, So this is what World Health Organisations say. First, safe and stable relationships. Life and social skills. Communication, problem solving. Compassion, empathy, all the skills that help you get through life without bumping alcohol and drugs and violence. Challenging the cultural and social norms. You know that? Scotland. If you ever see somebody on TV that's Scottish, they will be a psychopath. I would absolutely bet. I'll bet you a tenner they are. Reduce access to lethal means, that's absolutely a policing thing. And alcohol. I don't know what the Welsh relationship with alcohol is, but can I tell you, in Scotland, we are to hell in a handcart. It's probably one of our biggest challenges just now. So, we started to look at teachable moments. And we've done loads and loads of things. I've only got an hour. I could speak about this all day. Please taser me off if I go on about this, because I do love it, And we used to think teachable moments. When are the moments you're motivated to change your behaviour? Prashak and Clementi, motivation to change. For me, my motivation to change is always the 1st of January when I'm trying to get the zip up on my skirt and I can't get my dress up, and I have to get my backside back out running. For some of you, tomorrow morning, it'll be when you wake up and you think, I am never drinking again. Because I know you've got a party tonight. So we started to look at that. And parenting. And the most important job in the world. I came out and I said, I'd rather have 1,000 extra health visitors than 1,000 extra police officers. Chief police officers weren't overly delighted, but it absolutely is evidence-based, and I will never back off from it. When I started to come out and say that parenting was a way to prevent murder, the newspaper came out, one of the big newspapers came out and it said, Karyn McCluskey needs to get back to the kitchen and start baking scones. Now, oh listen, the irony was they lost to me. I'd been in my house 4 years before I realised the oven didn't work. So, but you can imagine being in the police, I got a load of cinnamon scone recipes and cheese scone recipes, but fundamentally, kids follow their parents. And we can't get away from it. 60% of the families now in Glasgow are single occupancy or single parent households, and men are absent. And whilst I'm a strident feminist, you guys are actually really quite important. So I'm having to back off from my strident feminism bit and think, we need to bring men to the table. Because I will never be a 16-year-old boy. I will never know what it's like to have some of the male skills to help you get through life, or what it is to be a good man. And we have a whole group of young boys who have grown up in 21st century Scotland without any idea about what it is to be a good man. And that is a real challenge for us. And since the Jimmy Savile problems and a whole range of other things, trying to get men to step forward is really difficult. Because we seem to think that everybody's a sex offender until proven otherwise, don't we? What kind of culture have we started? But see, when you start to think about some of the things that happen in the early years, the adverse childhood events, you have one of them, your chances of developing alcoholism are quite high. You have more than 4, it's huge. See all the families, the 3,500 that I had before, they have every single one of those. I would like to go to a house and the moment you have one, I'd think, oh God, this is dead easy. But the fact is, you have emotional abuse, neglect, domestic substance abuse, you have every single one of them. And it's the same with violence, dating violence, weapons carriage, fight time, the evidence is there. And we had James Heckman, who's a Nobel laureate economist. He came to Scotland as part of the Allender series, and what he said was, if you were a banker, and you wanted to invest £1, where would you invest it for the best return on your investment? Not to 3. Not to 3. That's where you get the best return on your investment. That's where England and Wales invest. Right, I failed O-level maths 3 times. That graph is the wrong way round, isn't it? That graph is the wrong. Kids don't vote. How is it the most vulnerable in our society get the least money? How is it the people who are charged with looking after your most vulnerable asset get the least money? Minimum wage. The most important commodity in our country is not our oil, it's our young people. Unless you start to invest. So I keep saying, if I'm in universities, I always say, let's think about university. We can close down and shift the money, which always gets them squirming uncomfortably in their chairs. But you absolutely need to shift spend. When I met a previous Treasury Secretary, he said to me, I'm convinced, don't go on about Karyn. He said, I know, he said, I believe the research. He said, the problem is we just can't shift the spend. I said, no, you just don't want to shift the spend. That's 2 different things entirely. And yet we know it works. There are shed-folds of research. Why are we not doing it? It's just the most devastating thing. In Scotland, we've just put an extra £85 million in the early years. We've now got the Early Years Collaborative. I wrote the Chief Medical Officers, part of the Chief Medical Officer's plan, which is really interesting. It's somebody from the police, but it's part of the CEO's plan, which is all about early years. I absolutely am unshakable. If we really want to change things, I might talk about something else later on about trying to change the outcomes for our most disadvantaged, that's where we need to be focusing our research. So there's a little bit of dry your eyes. I say this to police all the time. Dry your eyes. We're really expensive. We need to shift the spend. And secondary prevention, targeting those at risk. Dealing with those who are already at risk, and they're no hiding. They're not hard to reach. They're hard to speak to. They're hard to listen to. But we absolutely know who they are. So we've been going into schools and we've been doing bystander work. Because the thing that really affects most young people's outcomes just now is bullying. It absolutely mostly affects their quality of life. It's one big thing. So we've been doing bystander training. We're training every single school in Scotland. It is a huge undertaking to start to try and change the social norms. Sexting, bullying, sexist behaviour, because we need every other kid to try and intervene at the time. And it backfired on me. I hope I'm going to have to cut this out the tape or my daughter will kill me. We did it at my daughter's school and she just moved to school. And I had a phone call on the 23rd of December last year. She'd only been at the school for 3 months. And she'd been on our website and this other kid from the school had seen her, got her mum to contact me. She'd found my mobile on the internet, which is a whole range of things underneath that I really need to tackle. And her mum had phoned me and she says, I'm really worried, you should look at this. And she'd pretty much been saying teenage angst on the website, my friends have gone down from last school, I haven't got my new friends. Underneath this website were 17 comments telling her how to kill herself. You should take 20 paracetamol. Have you thought about hanging yourself over the back of the bedroom door? I nearly reverted back to intelligence, got their IP addresses and kicked their doors in on Christmas Day. But can I tell you, you know what I'm really grateful for? Is that another kid, so my kid, told her mum, is that not what every parent would want? You would want to know, because I'm a Luddite, I don't do Facebook. I think that Twitter's like barking into cyberspace. But their lives are different. Bystander, doing bystander training, it's probably the best thing they've ever done. And creating dandelion children. The Swedish Children's Commissioner talked to me about dandelion children. I said, who are the dandelion children? She says, you know the weeds that grow up between the cracks in the pavement? She says, they're the dandelion children. They survive and thrive despite the worst of circumstances. And they survive and thrive because of a good male role model, or a teacher that takes an interest in them. We need to create more dandelion children, because sometimes their parents are trying as hard as they can, but it's just not quite good enough. And we need to try and reinvest in making these children's lives, giving them something to aspire to and something to hope for. And the level of mental health issues, we are really struggling, because despite the best of efforts, I cannot undo 20 years worth of deprivation. I can make it better and not worse, but I can't make them forget about child sexual abuse. I can't make them forget about poverty, or being excluded from school, about being bullied, about being stabbed. The level of post-traumatic stress that we have in some of our young people is unmet. And most of the people that I know are too busy and too overwhelmed to even start to ask people about it. Because if they start, they might not have the resources to try and finish off the job, so all they do is reopen old wounds again and again and again. And then tertiary prevention. Sorry, I have to watch my time. Which is, I have some horrible photographs in this, so if anybody doesn't like it, I won't tell you when it's about to like. Because we also have to intervene with those who are victimised and those who are offended. So I set up a charity called Medics Against Violence. I'll talk to you about after this, because of one particular reason. Right, horrible photo coming up. Shut your eyes right now. We have the highest rate of facial injury anywhere in the world. If you want to do gunshot wounds, you go to South Africa or you go to Boston. If you want to do facial injury, you come to Glasgow. Glasgow smile? I hate that phrase. Glasgow smile is that. That's a 14-year-old boy. Somebody put a machete to his face. It will dissect all the nerves. He will never smile again. He will dribble constantly outside of his... Take that off now. He will dribble constantly outside, and we have one every 6 hours, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. If you suffer a serious facial, if you see a man with a big scar on his face, what do you think? He's a violent man, don't you? But actually he's a victim. If I go into our jails, they will be covered in these big scars, and I don't know what came first. Was it the scar that came first, or the offender? It could have been either way around, really, couldn't it? You know? So we started to train every single nurse to do an intervention in the clinic, because these guys are frequent flyers. Sometimes they just come off worse and are fine. Don't get me wrong. Some are really very much engaged in it. And so we've been intervening with every nurse. We've been doing brief violence interventions, brief alcohol interventions. But the violence one's actually quite new, because we've had to try and work out what Scottish people think is acceptable. Somebody bumps your pint in the pub and spills it. What do? Do you punch them in the face? Because that's what we expect everybody else to do. Well, actually, most people think that that's ridiculous. So we've started to look at social norms and how we can change that. I've got about 500 surgeons now that give their time freely as part of the NHS contract. They give me about 2 hours a week, and they go out, they do an extraordinary job. They've actually been taking some of the tattoos off some of my gang members, because they do seem to get their face tattooed. Although if they do it in blue ink, it comes out black and we can't take it off. Although the dentist, I had a wee guy that had teardrops tattooed in his face, and he'd done them in some bizarre ink. And I said to the dentist, could you take that off? And they said, we'll have a go at slicing it off, you know, because they wouldn't laser it. But they have been absolutely extraordinary. They fix people's teeth because they need to smile at interviews. They do a huge amount of discretionary stuff that makes it much easier for me. And we've been doing things like we interview with the dentists. I used to speak to dentists and I said to them, has anybody seen domestic violence in your chair? And one of the guys in Aberdeen put his hand up and he said to me, I had a woman in my chair, he said she had cigarette burns on the top of her mouth where she'd been forced down and somebody had stubbed cigarettes out of her mouth. And I said, what did you say to her? And he said, I said nothing, because I didn't know what to say. That's the truth though, isn't it? Sometimes we want to say something, we don't have the language. I train every dentist in Scotland now. I train every dental student. And what we do is AVDR. This isn't an injury I would normally see in my chair. You're in a safe place. We give them the language to be able to intervene. They document it, just in case the woman wants to report later on. and they refer onwards to some of the great agencies that are out there. We're also training the fire service, because the fire service are no longer doing point and squirt, because there's not many fires now, but they are inside people's houses putting in the fire detectors. If you see a woman with a bruise on her face, she's 89% likely to have been a victim of domestic violence, and she needs to be asked. Even if she rebuffs you, she needs to be asked. We're also training vets, regular trained vets. Yeah, I run the biggest homicide database in the world. I've got 3,500 homicides on it. We started off because of a serial murder inquiry. When we started to look at it, what we found was a huge amount of animal abuse in domestically violent relationships. We had guinea pigs squeezed to death in front of kids, dogs' throats cut. I mean, just horrific. The person that takes the animal to the vet is usually the woman. So we trained all the vets on non-accidental animal abuse, and we got them to intervene. It was, although I was saying before, I keep looking at that poster and thinking, you know, are you and your pet sharing a secret? I always think that's about bestiality, you know. and it's, you know, and it's actually my friend's dog, and she says, please don't say that. But every time, and now it's in my mind, I can't, you know. So we started to do it. When we actually did the training, we had a vet. The first day, she said, you're never going to believe this. She says, I just had a woman, she says, who had a graze in her chin, a dog with a non-accidental injury. She says, and I tried to intervene. She says, it didn't quite work out the way that she wanted it to, but at least she had a try. And she said, you know something? She says, I thought it was a violent introduction unit. I thought it was an integrity test. I said, oh yes, I sit out in your car park and break dogs' legs, just to see if you're actually intervening it. Although I haven't taken it off my tactical options, you know. And I suppose some of the big things was serve. We really wanted to tackle some of the gang members. I put this up, I'm going to make this sound dead simple, and it just isn't. Behind that card is every single service, one number. Health, social services, every service, house sign. And what we did was I came to the chief and I said, Chief, I want you to get all our gang members in the room, because remember, I've got loads of them. I'm doing public health, I need to get as many as possible, so no 5 or 10 people. I need to be doing hundreds. I said, I want you to get all the gang members in the room. We're going to motivate them in, we're going to be telling them that they shouldn't be doing that, and we're going to offer them something else to do. He said, please tell me it's more complex than that. I said, well, so is. You know? And I went round all my partners, and I said, right, this is what we're going to do. And we did a timeshare thing, you know that way we rang the bell, shut the door, and said, right, you're in this now. I work with great friends in different agencies. And so we did this. So, first day that we did it, we had helicopters up, we had boats in the Clyde, we did it in Glasgow Sheriff Court. We had 150 gang members in the morning, we had them all in the well of the court, and we had some of the community the other side. We had 120 the next day, the next afternoon. And what we said to the guys, but the chief constable who stood up and said, I know where you live, I know what you're doing, and frankly, I'm so powerful, I've got 10,000 cops, I could have them all outside your front door, if I so wish. And you can see, you know, the guys, their chests are out and they're like, come ahead, you know, it's the cops. And I mean, it was quite funny actually, because actually most of us were on holiday, so we couldn't have 10,000 cops outside their front doors. And we started to flash their pictures around the room, and you could see their point, and I think, look, that's me, you know. And what he said was, we want you to stop. This is the end. As of 12 midnight tonight, what one of you do will affect the rest of you. You want to be a gang, what you do will affect your liberty, and your liberty, and your liberty. We're going to really try and, we're going to try and change this. And then we had a maxillofacial surgeon stand up, who's a guy called Mark Devlin, who fixes cleft palates in babies. And he puts his babies up there and he said, do you know something? He said, I'm meant to be fixing these babies. And I've now got a waiting list, because you're doing so much facial injury, because they go straight to the top of the tree, don't they? You get a serious facial injury, you're in an emergency. You will take up an intensive care bed. And he had a waiting list. And these guys couldn't even look at the injury they were committing. And then the last person we had is a lady called Joyce Young, who's a midwife. And she talks about her boy, who bled to death in her arms. And she said, you boys might not care about yourself, but can I tell you, I go into my son's bedroom every single day, and I'll never get over this. And it's really interesting, no matter how crap some of their families are, how dreadful some of them have been treated, they absolutely love their mums. And you could hear them crying in the back of the courtroom. And then we gave them opportunity. We said, you can call this 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We will be out to you within 24 hours, we will have a plan for you within 7 days. I didn't think we'd get anybody. And we were absolutely overwhelmed. Absolutely overwhelmed. We had over 570 gang members come to us within a very short period of time. We had the Westminster Job Funds, we got them into jobs, we took off their tattoos, we got their teeth fixed. It's probably one of the most successful interventions that anybody's ever done. However, we stopped it, because I passed it over to someone. who just didn't have the passion to keep it going. And that's one of the things, isn't it? You know, sometimes you need leadership and people who are really involved in it. And some of the most extraordinary things that happened, to be fair, our gang fighting is absolutely, it's minuscule. I spent a night, I spent a weekend in Glasgow Royal Infirmary. We used to have 4 stabbings a night in every single major A&E department. And I was speaking to the consultant recently and he said, I said, are we going to get a stabbing in tonight? Because I'm slightly, I used to be an ER nurse before I went to the police. And he said, we don't really get that many stabbings in now. I said, well, how many thoracotomies have you done? You know the thoracotomies where you crack the chest for stab wounds to the heart? Glasgow did the most of any hospital in the UK, 25 a year. He said, we don't do thoracotomies now. And he must have saw my face. He said, am I sounding a bit boring? And I said, do you know something? I said, I loved you in a purely professional way, which sounds even worse, but that's actually what I said to him. Because, can I tell you, that's my measure of effectiveness. Because I always wanted to reduce that A&E door. It wasn't about police figures. It wasn't about what I saw on the street. It was about people coming through the A&E department. And I'm absolutely delighted, but they were part of it. Absolutely part of it. And I absolutely, we have, our prison population has gone down for the first time in a long time. Our young offenders, we're now doing early intervention and early diversion. Our young offenders' numbers are down at the lowest levels ever. Because you absolutely need to jail those you're afraid of and not those you're mad at, particularly when women's offending. I spent a weekend in Cornwall, which is our female jail. It was like spending a weekend in an acute psychiatric hospital. That's what it felt like. And I have to say, you see these women in their 30s, but we forget, they're the kids that were sitting on, the NSPCC adverts, the wee kids that are sitting on the stair with their faces in their hands. And we feel huge sympathy. And then we see them at 30 and 40, and we've lost all empathy and compassion for them. And we absolutely need to think of different ways of trying to reduce our prison population because it's got no good outcomes. I'm scared of a whole range of people, and there's some people in jail that I never want to see reduced. But frankly, can I tell you, if jail worked, America would have no crime. Because they jail 3.5 million people a year. It's just not working. So we've decided, we tried to, we had the Commonwealth Games last year. And I decided I had a game of brinksmanship, because if you had any criminal conviction at all, you weren't allowed to work at the Commonwealth Games. I think that might be wrong. So you're knocking down all their community centres to build these big velodromes that they can't afford to get into, and they can't afford to get into the Commonwealth Games, and you've just spent 500 million, and you're not allowing people with convictions to work there, regardless of how long ago these convictions were. So the Scottish Government were actually spectacular. It was the Commonwealth Games Authority that had done the rules. So they gave me some money. I took the hardest people. It was really funny. I did the most bizarre job advert everywhere. I advertised in Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, homelessness units, and then I interviewed people. And I had a woman who came in, and she was a sex worker, she was a prostitute, and she'd been drug addicted and a whole range of things, and she looked dreadful. And I asked that old interview stable, why should I take you? And she said, I wouldn't take me, so did. I had a young guy who walked 5 miles on his birthday to get to our office by 10 a.m. and then walked 5 miles back, just for the opportunity, so we took him too. And I had a phone call from the Daily Mail. I think you mentioned newspapers. So the Daily Mail, I love a fight with the Daily Mail. I think it's on the Guardian website, it says, reading the Daily Mail is like spending 20 minutes in a lunatic asylum. And she phoned me up and she said, she wanted to ask me about a whole range of things. She said, really why I was getting those bad boys jobs. I said, right, can we just clear up? I said, I am taping this conversation. I said, what's your tack this week? Is it welfare scroungers? Or you don't want me getting those bad boys jobs? I said, because it's one or the other. And I could hear her at the end of the phone think, bugger, And she says, welfare scroungers. I said, well, I'm getting them to be part of the wealth creation of Scotland. I said, because you know the most important thing? Those guys there, between them, they had 147 children. And can I tell you, I don't like all of them. Some of them are really hard to love. They really push my buttons. But I really love their kids. And if that intergenerational thing, I need their kids to see their mums and their dads earning square money. Because choices are only created equally in the society. You'd like to think so, wouldn't you? Some of these guys are born to fail. But I do believe in secular redemption. If you've not offended for 4 years, your criminal convictions are no more a predictor of future offending behaviour than it is for you and I. In fact, I'm probably more likely, You need to change it. These guys don't lack any information about death or prison. So, you know, your education things where people are going out and saying, right, what we'll do is we'll take them to jail and show them how bad it is. Really? Their family histories are littered with people who've died of drug overdoses, suicide, or done time in jail. They don't lack that information. They lack information about hope and aspiration to get them to aspire to a different life, and can I tell you, it's hard. 80% of them are now in full-time jobs. Because I always think that sometimes, I love it when people say to me, that will never work. And I'm so thrown. I just think, I'm going to show you that absolutely you can change it. But it's really hard. And I rely on professionals like yourselves to give me great advice about what works and what doesn't. And we actually run the Edinburgh Military Tattoo. So my gang members that do all the scenery, which is really interesting. So I had Brigadier Alfred, who was just the poshest man I've ever met in my whole life. I'd went to Eton, knew the Royals very well, and I showed them, you know, that piece of footage at the beginning. So I show it to most people are horrified. And he said, Karyn, that's the very man I want, can give a good kicking and take a good kicking. I said, Brigadier, you're missing the point here. But he actually saw, you know, I mean, he's still a bit odd, but I do love him. And he said, right, I'm going to change their lives. You know, and I thought, good on you, you know. And then he went away to march to Rakesi in full, like, military outfit. I mean, he's just unbelievable. But he did. So we now get all the gang members, and they do all the tattoo. So it is the most extraordinary thing. Now, there's a risk here, because there's loads of guns and loads of knives and really sharp things at Edinburgh Castle, you know. So you are taking a bit of a risk in your life, but it has been utterly transformational. Most of them hadn't even been to Edinburgh. It's 50 miles away. And they're like, what's that? It's a castle, you know? It's like a shortbread tin. So you can absolutely do it, but redemption. You need to be able to show some things. These are my disciplines. First, collaborate, partnership. You're talking about partnership. I'm a climber. If you're at the bottom of my rope, because I'm dead lazy as well, I will let go. I need you to be holding on when it gets really difficult. You know what? Really tricky. And you might be like, there might be some sparkly and shiny that's a bit more easier to do over there. I need you to stay with me. I don't partnership with organisations, I partnership with people. I find people that I like. I spend time trying to work out what makes you feel valued. I put my partners at the front because you can also lead from behind. You know, I try and make them understand and say to them, like, shut your eyes and tell me what success looks like to you. And if they can articulate it, I can articulate it. Then I know that we're going in the right direction. But we think it's easy, don't we? And I sometimes sit in partnership meetings, and I get to the end and I realise that there hasn't been a verb in the whole meeting. You know that no doing words, you know? So I now do that old IRA resistance to interrogation technique, because they used to put something really sharp in their leg, you know, right, you must remember, it needs to have a verb in it. I recommend that you do that frequently. But we absolutely need radical change in designing our services, and I know that frightens the living daylights out of people. Policing is the last great unreformed service. We are shrinking, but we've not reformed enough. We still think we're policing the 1980s, and actually, we're policing a society that's so different. Cybercrime, all these different issues, and I'm sure it's the same for you as well. And I don't think we're not really willing to do the radical change anymore. We seem to quite like tinkering around the edges. I quite like radical. So I'm going to sum it all because I realise that I'm actually a little bit late. And my second one is innovate. Demonstration is the highest form of proof. Absolutely. For those that say you can't do it, demonstrate it, show them, and challenge them to do it exactly the same. So how do you know when an idea is innovative? It scares the hell out of people. I recommend you do this on a regular basis. You know, I now do it, you know, and I encourage the people that work with me to think about, right, how would I do this differently? How would I change this? Particularly around alcohol. This was in the Telegraph last year, and it was a pig in Australia who'd found 18 cans of beer, fought a cow, and then passed out drunk under the tree. Now, as it is in Glasgow, and you know, so we decided alcohol's a big issue for us. I sit in the minimum pricing governance group. We're trying to bring in minimum pricing for Scotland. My dad refers to me as the alcohol Taliban, and that's the nicest thing he calls me. And yet we know the more alcohol, the more violence. It's absolutely incontrovertible, and we drink to get drunk. So we decided we'd use, I don't know if any of you were saying this, about 6 years ago I went over to Denver, I brought these bracelets over, and what I thought I'd do in Scotland was challenge the human right to drink, as if violence wasn't difficult enough. And these bracelets go around your ankle, they test the ethanol in your sweat every 30 minutes and electronically transmit it. I wore it for 3 days and it categorically proved that I was a cheap date. Probably the scariest technology. And we started to think, could we sentence people to sobriety? Could we help to support them? So we used to say to people, you need to find your sober friends in your sober places. And people would say to me in Glasgow, Karyn, I don't know any sober friends. You know, I certainly don't know any sober places. I live in Glasgow. And we started to put it on guys who were coming out of Barlinnie. And I suppose this is the issue. Because in the States, where they were using it only for drink driving in a couple of states, they found that a fifth of the population over there are abstinent from drink. So when I said find your sober friends, I don't know why I'm looking at you now. I don't know either. Am I? Yeah, you know. When I said find your sober friends, they were saying, well, I can't do it. So we put it on them. And the first couple of readings that we got from some of the guys that came out of Barlinnie, we had a reading of 1.2, so I phoned up the company and I said, what does 1.2 mean? And they said, imminent death. So I phoned up this guy and I said, are you all right? He said, hi, Hen. He said, I cut down my drinking. And at that point I realised that the Scots drink differently. I got into huge amounts of trouble over this. We were bringing, I did not read the political environment very well, and it's not something I would normally do. And I'd done loads of briefings for civil servants, but nobody briefed the minister, and then he was really embarrassed, and then he backed off from it. And so much so he actually said, if you don't stop doing this, I'm going to withdraw all the money from your unit. It was really interesting. I then decided, right, okay, because I'm completely thrown, I gave all my money to a university, and they started to do it, and then I gave all my stuff to Boris Johnson in London, and they've been doing it. It's probably this thing about it scares the hell out of people. Sometimes, although I still think for us, this is absolutely a good way of keeping people in their houses, in the community, and start to address their behaviour. Because remember I talked about behaviour? It probably came at the wrong time for us. We were already fighting in the courts on minimum pricing, and then we weren't actually willing to fight for this as well, because I wanted people to be sentenced to employment, sentenced to sobriety. So you need to zig where others are zagging. And this is the last thing I would say to you. Absence of evidence is no evidence of absence. I saw loads of things downstairs where people were measuring things and a whole range of things, you know. When I was doing the community project, the gang project in the East End of Glasgow, I always say to people, why is it that people reporting dog fouling in the East End of Glasgow I was quite delighted about? It's because previously they were reporting people fighting with machetes in the street. And dog fouling is what the middle classes report. So they'd actually shifted. So to me, I was actually quite delighted. I was like, that's fantastic. So no drugs, you know, no fighting with machetes. They're actually reporting about dog fouling. Quality of life stuff. And leadership. You need to have the stomach for ambiguity. You know, you need to be able to hold steady in an uncertain context. And this is just me, you know, this is my own personal reflections, because see when it was going really bad, when the murder rate went up, they were saying, that violence reduction unit, they're rubbish. See when it's going really well, I suddenly realised that, you know, success has many fathers. It's everybody, not it's us, you know. And you need to set the mood music in your organisation. You know that you can actually do this. And that takes massive resilience. Because it's really easy to give up. I've been in my job 11 years solidly. But see, sometimes when I'm looking at other organisations, people move on after 3 years. You're constantly, nobody ever stays in anything long enough to actually deliver anything. When did it start to become all about us and not about the service that we're actually trying to achieve or deliver? There's something about that, and particularly for policing where we move so fast. So my last bit is, I want to be a bit more like Finland. When the referendum was going on last year, I know it probably didn't reach the English newspapers and the Welsh newspapers much. I did a think tank talk when Mr. Salmond, our great chieftain of the pudding race, just wanted to be a bit more like Scotland. I was saying I wanted to be a bit more like Finland. I went to Finland, and although they fed me pickled herring, and it was really dark, I really liked it, because in Finland, 5% of the working population, remember it's a population of 5.5 million people, 5% of the population are pedagogues, a mixture of health and social worker and nursing. They support every child in the family until the age of 8. 50% of them are men. It is a really revered discipline. It's well paid, because people realise you need to invest in it. And then you go to school, but you don't get to choose what school you go to. You just go to your local school. That's just what happens. And when you go to school, do you know there's no educational outcomes in Finland? The only outcome for Finnish society and Finnish education is to turn out the best equipped kids to meet the needs of the nation. Communication, empathy, problem solving, team working, all the skills that you have. That's what helps you be great at your work. The byproduct is when they're actually tested at the age of 14, they actually turn out the best educated kids in the world. They are constantly at the top of the OECD PISA study. So I want to be a bit more like Finland. But they tax. Put up your hands if you would pay more tax if I told you we could have a better outcome for David's kid. See, can I tell you? Adam Smith in 1776 said, empathy is a glue that keeps society together. What people normally say to me next is, but I don't trust the politicians. That's a different thing. We need a radical change. Radical change. And whilst we're not quite as Soviet as Finland, we absolutely need to try and change. And when I asked the Finnish minister, I said, what did you do? He said, first off, we needed an ideological agreement that we were going in the right direction. You needed to know how you were going places. You needed a successful plan. You needed to tell everybody, dry your eyes, this is where this country's going to. Then you need to change society's understanding about the nature and causes of crime. If I go to a bus stop after a murder, I'll say, what's the problem here? And she'll say, people will say to me, oh, it's the parents' hen. It's the parents. The public know. And they need to engage the role of the media. Yes, that's really difficult for them to maintain a sober understanding. We have never had a negative headline in Scotland in the last 8 years. I get in every editor of every newspaper and I tell them I am not looking for a cheerleader. If I get it wrong, you can crucify me. Absolutely. But understand the context. And they absolutely have changed. Absolutely have changed. And I think that's why Scotland is going in a different direction. And you need constructive crime preventions, because if you don't have it, then the only thing we're going to do is jail. But it's hard. Machiavelli, The Prince, it's probably my favourite book, People are challenged by it. They'll be the super agreeables, the ones who nod and think, yeah, absolutely then, do absolutely bugger all. You need to be really quick at understanding who they are. You need to find your positive architects and gather together, because that will make your partnership much easier. And this is Adam Smith, which is one of my favourite bits, How selfish soever a man may be supposed, there are evidently some principle in his natures which interest him in the fortunes of others and render their happiness necessary to them, though he derives nothing from seeing it. By you paying more tax, you might not see the happiness or the compassion or the empathy in some of the most deprived communities, but it's absolutely the right thing. And this is Father Greg Boyle, who's from Homeboy in the States. He's a Jesuit priest. If he wasn't a Jesuit priest, I'd have married him, because he's lovely. And he runs the biggest Homeboy, he runs the biggest exit programme. And he's probably the most extraordinary. If you ever get a chance for some industrial travel, some tourism, go and see Father Greg Boyle in LA. He will absolutely make you think differently about life. And that's what he said. We've just forgotten that we belong to each other. So thank you very much indeed. I hope I'm on time. Thank you.